I'm sitting there, I'm doing prep to look over the AFC West, right? To do the predictions like we do in the second segment. We did it last week, did it this week, we'll do it for the next 6 weeks, right? So this week was the AFC West. So we're looking at the Chiefs, the Broncos, Chargers, and of course the Raiders, right? But I'm pulling up the entire list of the over-under win totals, right? Kind of getting to gauge what does Vegas think of these teams. Again, Vegas is frequently right. And I'm looking over the list, and I talked about how the Green Bay one stuck out to me, but what also stuck out to me was the number of teams in the same division or the same conference that are clustered, if that makes sense, right? Like let me throw something out there. Right? The Bills are 10.5, right? Their over/under is 10.5. The Jets, 9.5. The Dolphins, 9.5. Right? Like you noticing a trend here? Like what are the Patriots here? 7.5, right? So the worst team in that division, 7.5 wins. We're like, for lack of a better term, like a cluster. You know the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
But we'll say log jam for the purpose of this show, right? There's a log jam in that division, right? How about go look at the AFC West? We did it today, right? Chiefs 11.5. Let's see, Chargers right here 9.5. Right now, I know the Broncos are a little bit low, but they're still 8.5. Right now, of course, the Raiders, that's a different story. They're down at 6.5. But again, those top three teams within a game or two of each other, right? And it made me think, because the NFC I don't think has this problem quite as much, but there are going to be really good football teams that don't get in the AFC. How about the AFC North? Steelers at -8, or I'm sorry, at 8.5 over under on their win total. 8.5. Let's see. Let's go. What about the Ravens? How about 10.5? First of all, that's really high. And then 11.5 for the Bengals. Browns at 9.5. Again, all within roughly a game. So it goes 8.5 Steelers, 9.5 Browns, 10.5 Ravens, and then 11.5 for the Bengals.
Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna have teams. So let's go ahead and say something that I don't think is controversial. Right? The Chiefs win that division. I think the Jags win that division. I think the Bengals win that division. The AFC North. Let's say Buffalo wins that division. Who then gets in? So now you have Pittsburgh that's an ascending team. You have Baltimore that has consistently won double digits. You have New York, who now has a Hall of Fame quarterback. You have the Dolphins, who, when Tua is healthy, has been fantastic. You have Justin Herbert, who very well could win an MVP, and it wouldn't shock anybody. Mm-hmm. You have Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, who will both be Hall of Famers. That's 6 teams right there vying for 3 playoff spots. 3.
So you're gonna be left with three really talented teams
that would all make the playoffs in the NFC. All of them. All 3 of the teams that missed the playoffs out of that group would make it in the NFC. At least 2 of 3.
Yeah.
Like so let's keep playing this hypothetical. Out of those 6 teams, let's say the Steelers, the Dolphins, and the Chargers get in. Right? That would leave the Ravens, the Jets, and the Broncos on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Ravens in the NFC. So now, flip over to the NFC, we're going to have Philly, San Francisco,
top 5,
New Orleans, and we'll say Minnesota wins that division. Would the Ravens be the next best team? They'd be right up there with Dallas.
I'd argue
I think they're better than Dallas.
They're better than Minnesota. They'd be better than Dallas.
I think so too. Depending on what division they are in, and then they could be a division winner depending on what division they're in.
When you go to a wild card, I mean, they're better than any other team that's going to.
I would argue the same depending on how Aaron looks. Now that's a little bit of up in the air because we don't know how Aaron's going to look. But if he looks like he did last year, I would argue the Jets would be a top 7 team in the NFC. Mm-hmm. Again, same thing with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. We don't know, but if they look like we think they can look, they would be a top 7 team in the NFC. Like, there are going to be really good football teams. So I would say be careful with this whole it's playoff or Super Bowl or bust, right? Especially for like the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Hard Knocks, that media, and they don't make it. Could you imagine?
That'd be tough.
But I wouldn't say it's a failure.
It would be because of their direction and their vision for it. Right? Like if they didn't go out and try to get the best quarterback available on the market, and they didn't go get a Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, who by the way, the only reason they went veteran like that is because you bring over the experience. You
Yeah.
bring over the years and years and wealth of knowledge, and you bring him in to win now.
No, I agree, but
And especially with Hard Knocks, you have everything there with
Yeah.
the media. Everything is set up there for you to make a playoff run for the first time in how long, right? I mean, why else would Hard Knocks be interested in the New York Jets football team?
I mean, you bring up a good
It's
point.
all set up for them to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, this season's a waste.
I don't know if I'd go waste, but you did bring up a good point, right? Like they did bring him in to win now. It's interesting, right? So like that's the struggle with the NFL. Like I feel like NBA, which again we don't cover a ton of NBA, baseball, even hockey for the most part. At the beginning of the season, you can look and be like, oh, those teams suck. Like they won't. Like I could tell you before the season, Pirates, A's, probably the Red Sox, they weren't looking very good. Like I could list off 5-6 teams that you're like, oh, we knew the Nationals,
Yeah, like you knew a month before the season they were going to be good.
the Rockies, right?
Yeah.
You knew at the end of last year that they're not making the playoffs. Probably not next year. Probably the year after. Probably not the year after that. Right? Like that's something you could do in baseball, the NBA, mostly in hockey. Dude, football's wide open. The NFL is wide open.
Yeah.
Like, would it shock you if I don't know? So out of 8 divisions, if there were 4 new division winners? No. There's going to be 6 new playoff teams probably. There's going to be one team that shocks the world, doubles their win total, and is probably a number 1 or 2 seed.
Then there's going to be one that plummets too.
Of course there will be. My guess would be Minnesota, but I don't think they plummet. I think they just go down to like 8 or 9 wins, but whatever.
Either way, it's going to be absolutely fascinating.
I don't know. We'll see. I just think it's interesting, right? I'm looking at these these over unders. It's like there's gonna be a bit of a logjam in some of these divisions. It's gonna be interesting. I can't wait to watch
For
it.
sure.